It's Trans Awareness Week.
Let's do our part to end transphobia.
And record the show.
Welcome to GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome back to another episode of GayTalk 2.0, an LGBT podcast streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where you can access that live stream every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can do so by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. My name is Tom, and I'm your host, and as always, I'm in the studio with some of our typical hosts, starting with the first one.
Hey, y'all, Nick or Trish.
And Jay is away. He will be back later during the second half of the show. He's in a meeting, stuck in a meeting. But in the meantime, we do have a guest joining us all the way from Washington, D.C. Of course, it is our friend, Ed Stern. Ed, welcome to the show.
Aw, thanks. I was going to say, this is Jay Bear, but I don't really think his voice and I match.
So before we get going, Ed, give us a rundown of your titles, your credentials, so that people know what you do, who you are, and all of that good stuff.
Hi, I'm Ed. I'm Ed Stern. I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner down here in Washington, D.C. I own a psychiatric practice called Queer Ear Mental Health.
Is that why you're on our show? Mental
I
health?
hope so. Yeah. And I serve D.C., Washington, and Maryland. And of course, as we've spoken about many times before, I also co-host Inside Out LGBT Collective, which airs on the radio down here and is a podcast on WPFW, which is 89.3 FM here in D.C.
So, Ed, how did we get connected?
Well, there was this one time in band camp where you and
No, it's a funny story.
In the cabins.
Jesus, there's a couple of different. What are you talking about, Nick?
So we ended up connecting because you on your show had mentioned me. No, not on Grindr.
Okay.
Actually, we might have connected on Grindr.
Yeah,
or Scruff. Who knows?
No, it wasn't Scruff. I don't
Probably.
have that app. Look at me. I have no hair. It doesn't work.
You'd be surprised.
I mean, to each their own.
Right.
But
we'll do a training class on that.
We connected because you on your show, LGBT Inside
when
Out.
I quoted you guys.
Yeah, you quoted the fact that I always talk about gay animals, and we found it hilarious, and then we connected.
Obsessed with gay animals.
Yeah.
Well, they know how to do it right. That's all I'm going to say.
I'm telling you. And then we ended up coming on your show, and we had an amazing conversation. You had a very diverse panel of people, and then you brought us crazy folks onto your show to talk hot mess, and here we are.
No,
couple
I think
of
it's
years
a great
later.
as we were saying off the air, I think there's great symmetry.
Right.
We are what we kind of refer to as a terrestrial, land-based, old-fashioned radio show that is also a podcast. You are a podcast, but what's most important is we're all talking about the same thing. We're trying to give the LGBTQ audience a voice. We're trying to talk about the inequity, the inequality that is out there, and how we as a community can be together, no matter what the color of our skin, what letter of the alphabet in LGBTQIA we are. We are one, and we must be united.
Right.
I agree.
100%.
Well, we usually start the show with our weekends. So do you want to jump into our weekends and include?
Yeah, of course. So we're going to jump into our weekends and talk a little bit about what we've done. So why don't we give our guest the first slot? Tell us how your weekend went. What are you up to? I mean, I heard you were getting run over
backwards.
and stuff.
I'll start backwards. My evening this evening before the show ended in me being run over by a dude on a bicycle because it gets too fucking dark too fucking early.
Yep, preach.
This is just crazy. But my weekend was actually great. I had some friends in town who I get to see only usually about once a year. They're in their 40s, but they live in an RV and they travel all over the country. So
that's my dream, by the way.
Yeah, it's my nightmare. But they love it, and we had a wonderful evening of pigging out on about 3 days worth of Chinese food from our favorite Chinese restaurant. My boyfriend was over, made it a good, just great social evening. The rest was, boring and uneventful. How about you guys?
What about you, Trish?
I had an interesting weekend. It wasn't bad. I had a lot going on at the theater. So I had event after event this weekend. But then on Saturday, I finally went on a date.
He did.
I did.
He did.
I went on a date. Very nice guy. I don't know where it will go. But at least I'm getting out there again. So I like, it felt good to go on a date, and there wasn't a lull in conversation. It was a really good, I had a really nice time, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. Yeah,
it's all a matter of, putting things into perspective. It's like we're literally just taking the training wheels off all over again.
We're completely restarting our lives.
I know.
After COVID, and everything is awkward. Conversations are awkward. People don't know how to interact in person anymore, or at least they have to sort of kind of practice. So it's never easy. So I 100% understand.
Yeah.
But I mean, and the fact that his name is Steve.
That was another thing.
Another Steven. It could be challenging for you.
It was so funny because we were, in conversation, and at one point there were 3 Steves.
Right.
Him and 2 others that had been a part of my life in the same space. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is bad. Like, this is crazy. Why has Steve become such a staple in my life? It's like, I need to find a new name.
Well, I mean, you need to find a new pool of people. Period.
I don't know.
But
You got to move beyond or earlier in the alphabet.
Yeah.
Is really where you got to go.
get an Andy or Bryce or something. Start with the A's and work your way up.
Okay.
Because you went straight to the S's and never left.
No, it wasn't my fault.
Okay, if you say so. Well, I'm glad that you went on a date. Did you do anything else? I invited her over for a movie on a Saturday, and she decided to go on a date instead of coming over and watching a movie with me. So,
No, I mean,
I feel the love.
I worked on Sunday like you did. We had it was slow, but it was pretty good. I mean, other than that, not much really happened for me this weekend. What about you?
It was my weekend was uneventful. Friday I crashed. Saturday my aunt had a party for her granddaughter, and she decides that she's going to extend the invitation. And I looked at her. I was like, "Are you nuts? Do you know me? Like, I don't do well around children. Why would you invite me to a child's party?" But obviously there were going to be a lot of adults there, etc. And, it's indoors. It was storming on Saturday, so you really couldn't do anything outdoors, or you couldn't get outside because it was raining.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, Ma. So I said, Ma, I'm not going. I'm just going to stay home. I rented Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And watched it. And, well, I didn't rent it. It's actually on, Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And watched it, and I freaking loved the movie. My God, the representation of Asian artists in this film was amazing. I mean, clearly there's going to be one token white guy in the whole movie, which I'm okay with. But the casting was incredible, and it was insane. So I'm excited to see where they go with this storyline.
Now, was this a Marvel?
It's a Marvel movie,
okay.
So it's I think it's called Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic, experience, and so I'm excited to see where it goes. And then the next, obviously, I wanted to see this movie first before I saw Eternals. Because they sort of kind of connect in a way, so you have to really watch them in the order in which they are released. Otherwise, you can get a little lost.
But you also saw another movie this weekend, as did I.
I did. So I also saw Respect with Jennifer Hudson.
I fucking love her.
Who plays Aretha Franklin. And, she is the mother of soul. I mean, you're talking about the queen of soul.
Yeah.
And you had made a reference when you said, "Hey, go into my account and watch this movie that I rented," and said that you didn't realize that Aretha Franklin had a very turbulent childhood.
No, and we talked about this the other night. And I love Aretha Franklin. I think she's amazing, and I love all of her music. And watching this movie, I was floored at what she went through as a child, and then still as an adult.
Right. Ed, did you see any of those films?
So Shang-Chi, I saw. I had a hard time getting his role from the Netflix series Convenience Store out of my head.
Okay.
The primary actor, he's just. I mean, he's obviously got a lot of talent, but I kept kind of picturing him being the goofy older son in that. I am dying to see Respect, but I've promised my boyfriend that I would hold off until we both had time to go see it. And we're going to try to see it old school in the movie theater.
So we won't ruin it for you. I mean, clearly we know what happens. She becomes famous.
I hear she becomes a famous singer or something.
Yeah.
You know, but the breakdown of her life and the way Jennifer Hudson played her, she even changed the way that she spoke to play this character, and it was masterful. If she doesn't win an Oscar for it,
in a number of different interviews that she's done, and the story and the effort that she's went through, and the accolades that she's gotten. I mean, it just should be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. And you know what's crazy too is that, I mean, I saw before watching the movie, I saw an interview with Jennifer Hudson talking about this movie that was coming out. And she was like, I cannot tell you what it is like to have Aretha Franklin call you and say, I want you, only you, to play me. Imagine that. Like, literally, imagine being a person and getting a phone call from Aretha Franklin saying, you're the one to play me in this movie about my life.
And to think that we lost her not too long ago, right? And that's the sad part, that, a lot of these amazing, gifted, beautiful souls that we've been loaned don't ever get to see the veneration and the appreciation for the gift of their music and their song. And to think that, we lost her, and now this movie comes out, and then Jennifer making reference to getting a phone call from herself and say, if ever there is a movie made, you're playing me.
Like, how you can't say no to that phone call.
No, you can't.
Like, imagine, like, you can't. But actually, this is a kind of a perfect segue, because I know that you decided to stay up until 4 a.m. last night because someone, her name is Adele, was performing a one-time concert.
That's right. She was doing One Night Only on CBS. It was a concert that she did in conjunction to an interview that she had with Oprah Winfrey. So they were going from the concert venue to the interview and then back. And the concert was actually held, I believe, in the Griffith Observatory.
It was beautiful.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous backdrop. And she just freaking killed it. And obviously it's Adele, and when Adele says hello, the world goes bananas. And this time around, Easy on Me came out. It's blown every record that you could possibly think of. It is the most played female artist in Spotify history. And it's only going to get worse because her album releases next week. Yeah. The entire album. And we got a chance to actually see a couple of her new songs, which she performed live, in addition to some of her older ones. The crowd was, Hollywood's elitist. You see James Corden there. There was the cast of Modern Family, couple of other individuals.
Melissa
McCarthy was there.
Yep. There was an engagement.
That's right. There was also an engagement. So apparently, this couple was having a picnic, and the gentleman who was proposing knew that was happening. Obviously, she didn't. And so they sort of kind of put like noise canceling headphones on and a blindfold and walked her up to the conservatory.
Like right up to the stage.
To the observatory, right up to the stage, to where they darkened the lights, He removes her blindfold. She's looking around. She goes like, who are all these people?
Where are we?
Where are we? And the whole 9 yards. And in all of this, she doesn't see Adele because it's completely pitch black. And he proposes. She says yes. She comes on and she goes, "Oi!" And, you know, she congratulates them and starts singing "Make You Feel My Love."
No, she goes, "I've been dating you for so long. Thank God." That's what she said. I was dying.
There's a lot of touching moments about the whole special. Obviously, an interview with Oprah Winfrey is just one of those things that it's just cathartic in a way that, you know, just it's an outer body experience when you get to be interviewed by someone like Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
But in all of this, what topped it off for me was the fact that her 6-year-old son had never seen her perform before, and she had not released music in 6 years, which means that her son has no concept of who Adele is outside of mommy. And she made a reference to that, which I thought was amazing. And I'm not going to sit here and try to paraphrase what exactly was that she said, but I will play it for you because I thought it was just incredible. Take a listen.
This is the first time it's all got perched like this because I can't sit in this mermaid dress. I feel like my whole campaign so far with my outfits is a bit Death Becomes Her. Sometimes I'm hell and sometimes I'm mad, you know? Anyway, this is the first time that my son has ever seen me perform. And I got really dressed up for me. It was, I'm not going to cry anyway, it's too soon to cry and I don't want anyone to come fix me face. But it's the absolute honour of my life, baby, to have you here tonight. And you look so beautiful and so handsome and smart.
I thought that was incredible. Can you imagine, right? Being a parent, being the superstar that is Adele, and having your child, your prodigy, look at you for the first time with different eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, as a child, he would always go to venues and while she was rehearsing, but they were always empty. Right. And then she would usher the child home and say, okay, you got to go home. He had never seen a stadium full of people coming to see his mom play.
Well,
It's amazing.
She supposedly kept, you know, her son very, you know, secluded from that world because she didn't want, you know, her son to be the subject of, you know, paparazzi or whatever it is, like so many celebrities have to deal with. So that is a big thing.
Right. And it's just, it was absolutely incredible. And I'm glad that she's back. And when the album releases, I'm going to lock myself up for a week and just cry. And that's healthy
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a Sam Smith album.
Oh.
It's an Adele album. I mean, and
Adele,
you know,
when
they asked her, you know, what's the album about? She goes like, divorce, honey, divorce. It's about divorce.
Well,
So this was live out on the West Coast, which is why you were up so bloody late.
Well, no, it was supposed to broadcast at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live, but I was working at the bar, and so I couldn't be home to watch it. So I had to watch it when I got out of the bar. And so that's why I was up till 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
what an amazing thing.
Switching some gears.
Yes.
So I want to talk about the fact that you brought something up in Transgender Awareness Week.
That's right.
We are here, and we are in 2021, and 2021 is not over. And I think it is really important to note that 45 transgender individuals have been killed in just the United States this year. And so, Ed, I want to toss it over to you, and I want to kind of hear from you. What does Transgender Week mean to you, and working with transgender individuals and mental health? Like, what does that all look like and mean to you?
Yeah. No, thanks. I mean, you're right. Right. So we're talking about 45 people. The majority are of the people who have been killed, you know, are people of color. As you rightfully pointed out, the year's not over. Right. It's the deadliest year for the trans community since we started tracking this. So, you know, it's pretty impactful. I think one of the things, right, so we say this every year. And, you know, when we talk about the transgender community, or really just the gender diverse community as a whole, the bigger umbrella, you know, they face a different kind of challenge than what many of us who are part of the cis community do face. And there's different ways that people transition. There's different aspects behind transition, and what the people outside of their community, and unfortunately even within our own LGBTQ community, they get tied up in the fact that that there's this difference between gender and sexuality, and we have all of these different things that we really have to remember that right, our sexualities, who we're attracted to, who we sleep with, our gender is is how we identify.
Right.
There's no longer the forced thinking that there's unless you're in certain terrible states, that you have you are what you were born with, you
Right.
are how you were born, and where that all takes us. So people who are part of the trans community spend that angst, that anxiety, often immersed in it throughout throughout their day, walking into a bathroom not knowing what they have to deal with, walking down the street not knowing what they have to deal with, and ultimately having this risk of the fact that they being in public can, for many of them, feel unsafe.
Right.
I mean, I'll toss it over to Tom, but we said 45 in the United States alone. Can you even guess how many internationally, which is only what they can track?
I'm not going to guess, but I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Yeah.
So
currently we're at 375.
375.
And it is, like Ed said, recorded as the most deadliest year since 2013 when HRC started tracking this.
Right. And it's scary because, you think, you start your normal day, you walk out the door and you expect that, you're going to do good things and, live your life. And here comes some asshole who has a different agenda, and boom, you're gone. And it's sad because, when you think about transgender awareness or Transgender Day of Remembrance and its concept, how it was founded, it was based on a tragedy, right? I want to mention, because I believe it should be, it's Gwendolyn Ann Smith. She was the transgender woman out of San Francisco. She's still with us, but she had lost a friend. And as a result of that, she started this initiative online to create Transgender Day of Remembrance. And then, the community obviously embraced it and took it and created a whole week out of it. And so what's done in the week leading to Transgender Day of Remembrance, which is November 20th of every year, is that, local centers and, local support groups for LGBTQ plus people do a lot of different types of events and, provide a lot of different types of support services to lead into that vigil that's held now in more than 200 cities in the United States and in countries all over the world. And it's huge. And so I want to, commemorate and thank Gwendolyn Ann Smith for doing this, because in her way of dealing with her friend's loss, she found a way to bring the community together in a way that could celebrate not only the life of her friend, but the life of so many, as you said, that we've lost already this year alone, and not to mention all the ones that we've lost in years prior. Yeah. So,
and this is just proof that, we've accomplished so much as a, community, but there's so much work that still needs to be done. Right. And so
you make a really good point, Nick, because I think, what's important, you had mentioned, right, that we know of the, how much, 300 and how many?
75.
Deaths?
Yeah.
Right. 375 deaths. It's also important to take into consideration that those are only the countries that are willing to report it, because there are still countries that will put you to death for being trans or really anything in the LGBTQ world.
Not to mention,
when we look inward in this state, in this country, there are currently, with the National Center for Transgender Equality, there are 24 states that are on their watch list that have current legislation in the works that in essence becomes anti-trans legislation.
Right. Not to mention all the misgendering that happens, right? So
Absolutely.
for police officers and for law enforcement that have to investigate a murder or death or whatever it's called, at times they will write down in their report the gender in which the person was born into rather than the gender that they identify as. And
Well,
so
let's take that even further, Tom, right? That there's, you know, there's public organizations like law enforcement. There's hospitals, right? That's my world. There's hospitals that have no policies about how to deal with people's identified gender.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have challenges where you have a person who identifies as male who is placed in a female gendered room,
Right.
and, as a patient, or those that are in prison and other places like that. We have no national standard, and
Right.
every individual entity, not even every state, tends to treat this differently.
It's interesting too, because we live in Connecticut, which is a pretty, liberal state. And, generally it's pretty safe to be who you are here, I would say.
in certain areas.
Yeah.
But in most of the state, but there are areas of the state that are very sketchy, just like any other place in the world.
Yeah, but I was in a staff meeting the other day, and I have to say, I think I work with an amazing team of people, and we're pretty much all brand new. And I look, I brought up, we're talking about all these like renovations that we're doing and working on the bathrooms and replacing the carpet. Do we have a gender neutral bathroom? And everybody kind of went like, oh shit, no.
Right. And
we need to address it.
We're actually having the same conversation in some of the new office spaces that we're doing now as a result of that, and as a result of the group that we created in my employment. And where we're saying, okay, if we're truly going to be supporting LGBTQ plus initiatives, we need to start talking about how we incorporate that into everyday corporate life.
Yeah.
What are we doing about gender neutral bathrooms? What are we doing about gender identifiers, et cetera? And, being able to live in spaces and function in spaces in corporate America. And that is a very important conversation to have. And if they can catch it and build it in time, I think it would be a great thing.
Yeah.
So Ed, as a mental health provider, when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, obviously I feel like there's different approaches to, lesbian, bi, trans, whatever you identify as. But since we are talking about trans right now, and we do have, a huge portion of our community, especially youth, that are homeless, seeking shelter, or, struggling with their home life, is there a different approach that you take with trans individuals than you would take with anybody else? And or if somebody is looking for help, where do they go? How can they comfortably find, the right person to speak with?
Yeah, no, those are great questions. I think, the sad part is that the easiest thing that all of us can do makes so much sense, yet not enough people do it, which is open radical acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I remember a young 18-year-old man who briefly became a patient of mine, and he was blown away. He was transgender. He was blown away that in the 50 plus minutes that I spent with him, I used his correct pronouns. I used his correct name. And he said to me that as an 18-year-old, nobody in his life has ever used his correct pronouns and name for 45 minutes. And that's just so impactful, right? It's such a simple thing.
It's huge.
And that's nothing more than radical acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just sit there and say, hi, who are you? And use their name. If you want to get tied into the logistics of legal name versus their identified name, we don't even use preferred name anymore, which is seen as such a inappropriate statement. What gender are you?
Yeah.
What are your pronouns? And it's, it's great that in our mental health world, in the healthcare world in general, we are trying very, very hard just to get healthcare professionals to just simplistically do that.
Right.
And, and then take it from there. But once you have radical acceptance, then how you work with them differently is, we identify, at least the way I run my practice, I try to help other people run their practice that way is listen and identify what their problem is. Because they are trans or part of the gender diverse community, that could be part of the problem, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be part of the problem, right?
Oh, yeah.
Their depression, their anxiety or whatever doesn't define who they are and what their gender identity is. They overlap. It's, you could get fancy and say it's a big elaborate Venn diagram, but working with them, accepting them, and then plugging them in, like you were saying, Nick, plugging them into the right resources. If they're young, giving them access to things like, the Trevor Project is a great place for people to go. They've got chat rooms and all sorts of, virtual online resources. There's actually even, there's an organization called Trans Lifeline that, people can call into if they're in crisis. But we've got to start with the basics. We've got to start with giving them the tools and, most importantly, giving them the respect.
Yeah. And we probably have to go to break shortly, but I want to point something out that I think, when George Floyd happened, we heard a lot of different terms starting to be thrown around, like radical acceptance, radical inclusion. And a lot of people don't quite get what that radical means. Like, what does it mean to be radically inclusive or radically accepting?
You want my simple answer?
I mean,
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yes.
both.
Okay. Suck it up, bitch, is, right? It's just, this is a modern day and age where the world is evolving faster than many of us, and we have become such an international an international place. So when you radically accept, it's really just take it as it,
Rip the
okay,
Band-Aid
I
off.
forgot where we were, and we're not covered by the FCC.
Correct.
Bend over, bitch, and take it.
Right.
Right? Listen to what people are saying, accept it for what it is, absorb the knowledge, accept what's going on, process it, figure it out later. That's the way I look at radical acceptance.
Yeah, and I think that needs to happen in a lot of different spaces, whether it's corporate America, whether it's in personal lives, whether it's in other like different forums, because it affects how someone who is transgender can function in society. I'll give you an example. I was having a conversation with someone that I know that is a corrections officer, and we were having a conversation not too long ago. They arrested a transgender woman. That woman was then taken to the hospital for observation before she would be booked and brought into the correctional facility. And the COs that were accompanying this individual that I know refused to identify the woman as her correct pronouns. And he insisted that, if this is a transgender person, we need to address her the way she wants to be addressed. And he was telling me, I have no problem in addressing someone in whatever pronouns they prefer or they want, because that's who they are. Yeah. And you can't take that away from them. And, to see, especially in spaces in where, you have a lot of transgender women, for example, are incarcerated as a result of whatever police think they're doing, and ends up being put in the general population in male prisons. And this is the case for this woman. She is now incarcerated and put into the general population. She's not isolated in any way to protect her from inmates. She is put in the general population with the rest of these men and is left to fend for herself. And the only time she gets individualized care is if she needs to, for example, have some sort of, examination or see a doctor regarding her, her regimen for whether that's hormone therapy or whatever therapy she's going through. But, this individual was really disturbed at the fact that even in a state like Connecticut, we're still putting transgender women with men in general population that it's just horrible. And so
and we don't continue their hormone regime when they're in lockup in many states because it's not considered medically necessary. I mean, there's just so much to that, Tom.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And other states don't offer any help at all. But I think that there's a lot to be done, and not only for example, obviously if you break any law, whether you're trans, whether you're straight, whether you're gay, if it requires that you serve time, you do your time, you do what you have to do. But I think that government agencies need to work hard in making sure that individuals who don't, in a sense, conform to what most people think is the norm, that they have some sort of safe space where they can't be harmed.
Yeah. And if you don't understand it too, I think it's important that you educate yourself. I mean, I had an experience a couple of years ago where, my company that I was working for, when we would have a large meet and greet with a new company that would come in, we would go around, we would say our name, we would say whatever the person wanted us to say, whether it was like a memory or your whatever this, whatever that, plus your pronouns. And for a while, I would just kind of say, I'm Nick, here's my thing, and then call me whatever, because I respond. Because, my friends call me she, like, you know what I mean? Like, he, they, it doesn't matter to me. And I then had somebody join our staff who identified as non-binary, and I had said that in a staff meeting, and something clicked in me, and I pulled this individual aside and I said, "Did I offend you when I said what I said?" And he said, No, you didn't offend me at all. Like, I understand where you're coming from. You're a gay guy. Your friends probably call you she all the time. I was like, but should I be saying that? He's like, honestly, I don't think you should be. If you identify as he, him, identify as he, him. And it struck me that I was kind of making a joke out of pronouns as a gay man, and that was not my intention at all.
Right.
But I don't do that anymore. My pronouns are on my business card. My pronouns are in my email signature. And I think that that's really important. And I think that a lot of people don't understand pronouns. And I think that's where it kind of all starts.
Those are the little things that you can do, right? To help encourage a conversation, and also help the culture at work understand where you're coming from and what we're trying to do. Things
let's
like that.
Let's look at what you guys talked about last week, that the young man out in Missouri who won the homecoming queen role, right? I mean, this is where people's heads explode.
Right.
And and screw them if it does, but this is where people's heads explode, because even if they accept the trans community in some way, here's a young person who accomplished so much in so many different directions with one simplistic act. And he doesn't identify as trans, but he just simply said, I put on a dress, I liked it, it was gold, right?
Gold's my color.
Gold's my color. And he went with it, because that's where this younger generation really is. The lines are so much more blurred. And again, accept it. If you have a person who's identifying as gender diverse, identifying as transgender, whatever it is, just accept it. Don't ask them. This is what I had to learn a long time ago. Don't ask them to become your educator, right? That's, one of the things. The example I use all the time is, so legally, my name is Edward. I like to be called Ed. If people call me Edward, I feel uncomfortable. I can very easily correct people with that. But people who are part of the gender diverse community who have changed their name from what their birth name was have a much harder time.
Mm-hmm.
People have a difficult time conceptualizing the difference. But at the end of the day, they are, and sometimes a trans person kind of goes off, right? So Nick, you had a good learning experience from a new peer, but sometimes we wonder why people are on a short trigger if they're correcting a pronoun or something like that. And that's because they have to do it
constantly,
day in, day out. You know, you guys have said on your show, I've said on my show, you know, how many times in a week do I have to come out? But imagine every single day, you know, and I'm reminded, I know you guys want to go to break, but I'm reminded, and this will age me pretty quick, but have you guys heard the expression, Jane, you ignorant slut?
No.
Oh my God. See, I am old. Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin, when they did Weekend Update on SNL, the original SNL, Dan Aykroyd would turn around. Jane Curtin would kind of give this conservative view on something, and Dan Aykroyd would turn and look at her and say, you know, as this professional newscaster, Jane, you ignorant slut, and give the alternative, you know, view on things. Sometimes you just need to, you know, grab a friend and give them a little smack and, you know, remind them how ignorant they are and provide that education and insight.
Yeah. 100%.
It's incredible, you know, but we're definitely going to go to break. But before we do, I want to leave you with a little call to action for our listeners and for those of you who are supporting LGBTQ plus spaces as a show, as humans, as individuals, and as members of the community. We encourage that you find your local LGBTQ plus centers in your area, familiarize yourself with some of the programming that they're offering this week, and make sure that you engage, learn, even if you just sit there in a live stream and just listen to what the people have to say. There's so much to be learned about how one of the most underrepresented groups or subgroups in our community it's a cry for help. They're literally crying and saying, this is who we are. Take an opportunity to familiarize yourself, learn from that. And if you can, and you have one near you, come Saturday the 20th, and there's a vigil, attend one. And, you know, if anything, in solidarity with our brothers and sisters in our communities, which again, all they want is just to be understood and to be accepted, just like we did when, you know, we were going through, you know, our revolution in Stonewall, and, you know, not to mention drag queens and transgender women were the ones that really started that shit off. So let's not be stupid about it. And you know, let's put our gloves and put on our big boy and big girl pants and do what we need to do to make sure that our community is safe.
Yeah, and just to follow that up really quick, because, you know, I'm on the board of the New Haven Pride Center, and we are coming up on our 25th anniversary, which is a huge thing. But let's think about the fact that it took 25 years for the Pride Center, that does so much amazing work in the state of Connecticut, to get a line item from the state, and that means funding from the state. So if not only you can, you know, learn about your local Pride Center, but if you have the means, try and find a way to support them as well.
Right. All right. Well, listen, with that, we're going to leave you with some music. And when we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the holidays, which are coming up, and how, as the LGBTQ plus community, we get anxious of going back home and meeting with family members, those that may be toxic, etc. But, you know, it happens. So we'll leave you with some music. Here we go. We'll be right back.
She was waiting by the back door, said, babe, we gotta leave town. Get your shit, get your suitcase, your dog, your guitar, 'cause we gotta go now, 'cause they're coming. Well, they know our fucking names, yes, they're coming, just the same. Well, I know you don't want to leave your life. You've had some blood and tears, little joy, little strife, but they're coming. Well, they're coming down the road, yes, they're coming. Truth be told. And don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land in the first place, but they're coming just the same. Got a knapsack full of judgment, hypocrisy, and lies. And they're talking so much hateful bullshit, they've begun to gather flies. But they're coming. Well, don't look 'em in the eyes. Yes, they're coming. No surprise. And with so much terror in our past, how are you so surprised it's come to bite you in the ass? Yes, it's coming. Well, it's nipping at your heels. Yes, it's coming for the kill. And don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land to sell or trade. No, don't forget the whiskey, and don't forget your history. It was never their land in the first place, but they're coming just the same. So I'll meet you at the station where we can get on that train. Head out to the wastelands where we can change our names, 'cause they're coming. Well, they know our fucking names. Yes, they're coming just the same. Just the same. Just the same. Just the same.
All right. Oh, let's wait for the music to finish, Tommy. Stop being in a rush. All right, ladies and gents, welcome back from the break. That, of course, was Wastelands by the incredible Amanda Barrick. And we're back on the second half of the show. Ed Stern is still with us, I believe, right, Ed?
I am still here.
Yay. And we're going to jump into a topic that, can be very touchy for a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community, and that is going back home for the holidays or engaging with family members during the holidays, which can at times, have you subjecting yourself to toxic people that you tend to avoid most of the year. So Ed, I know that, given your field of work, I'm sure that you have had an opportunity to address some of the things that we may chat about today professionally. Let's start with the whole thing when anxiety builds just at the thought of having to engage when the holiday season starts arriving. Like, we're now weeks before Thanksgiving. Christmas is coming shortly after, and then New Year. What is it like for people when they start getting anxious about this time of year?
Well, this year's a little bit different than years in the past, right? Because there's this little thing, I don't know if you read about it in the news, this pandemic thing they keep talking about.
Right.
Wait, what?
We had a pandemic.
Yeah, it's sort of
still
weird.
happening.
Yeah.
Believe me.
I think it has to do with something about gay pandas. I'm not really sure.
That is rude, and I disagree with that statement.
No, it's so no. In all seriousness, that so this year is a little bit different. Last year's a little bit different as well. But there are a variety of people in the LGBTQ community tend to have loneliness, regret, stress about being with family that do not support them. That's it's terrible to have to say it this way, but that's a normal Thanksgiving. Here in 2021, what you might have is this pent up aspect, because you may have been stuck living in the home of somebody who does not support you as an individual.
Yeah.
Does not, and now you're at a time when there's supposed to be joy and happiness and and some concept of a bigger picture in our life, and now we're stuck with even a worse case scenario where you may be with those people and miserable at a time when you're supposed to be happy, or worse yet, they're adding to it, right? So Uncle Joe and Aunt Betty are coming over, and they're crazed Bible thumper anti-queer folk, and mom was just getting to the point where she was maybe accepting the fact that you are not as straight as as she wanted, and now you're adding to it. So we just have this horrible cumulative effect. That's why people like myself in the behavioral health world are just so overloaded with patients in need. But at the foundation, to truly answer it, right, at the foundation, what you're dealing with is potentially loneliness. Maybe you've separated from your family, from your biological family, don't maybe have a bigger network of self-made family. So you're lonely, you're missing traditions that you grew up with since you were a young child. So you're lonely, you're isolated. That in and of itself is horrible. Or you're putting yourself, for the sake of the family, putting yourself smack dab in the middle of a discriminatory event. You are volunteering yourself for that tension, and you're either keeping it shut and keeping yourself in the closet for that day, that weekend, that week, or you're facing the ridicule from Uncle Joe when he's had one too many whatevers, or just frankly walked in the door.
Yeah, and even
where's that faggot?
Yeah, well, even for those people that aren't out of the closet, I mean,
sure,
you see it in Love, Simon. I know it's a bad example, but the reality is, even side comments that happen by parents or loved ones or extended family, if you're in the closet and not out, those comments make a huge difference, and those comments can literally shape what you think will happen if you came out of the closet.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I mean, think about it. If you're sitting at the table contemplating coming out, which I believe we can all resonate with that experience, and you hear your father or your mother or your uncle or an aunt or a cousin say something derogatory about the community, about
which they
gay
might
people,
not think is derogatory, because it might just
Right.
be a blanket statement. Like, oh, well, I always thought that person was gay.
Right. Well, and then you're here thinking, oh shit, but I'm gay. They don't know that, but if he's thinking that, that gay, there's something wrong with gay, why am I going to come out to these people, right?
Well, that's a huge problem, right? I mean, we still live in a world where gay is synonymous with negative connotations, and it has to stop. It has to stop. I mean, I've said this several times on the show, but it's like, you hear someone say, oh, that's so straight.
Right.
That means it's cool. That's so gay. That means it's awkward. It's not cool. It's weird.
It's wrong. Yeah, and the thing is too, you also have to look at the spectrum too. For example, how different it also could be depending if you're a person of color, if you're black or brown, versus someone who may be white. How these things are completely different, because the level of so in your face, the level of brazenness from family members is just that much more elevated when you're talking about black and brown people and how they interact at family gatherings.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to the fact that there's a lot of horrible things that are said and horrible things that are done to members of our community in family gatherings, and it's all, the majority of it, I would probably say 90% of it is religion. It's religion driven.
Religion, and I think also cultural.
Right. Yeah, it's culture, lifestyle, and you both bring up a really good point. These things are done to us, and in some cases we do them to ourselves, right? We increase that potential. We interpret things, in ways that.
Oh no, Ed!
That way.
You froze.
Okay.
Okay. Am I back?
You're
Yes.
back.
Okay. We interpret things and take them and internalize them and sometimes interpret them incorrectly. And that's the challenge that we add onto it. And adding all those things, right? It's not just stress. It's not just I'm feeling like crap and I got to go out and smoke a cigarette, vape, do some, Delta 8 or whatever it is that you're going to do to unwind. You're going to do, right? We're talking about increased suicidality. We're talking about increased self-harm and other things like that because, you're being slapped from a whole new direction this time of year.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge too.
I mean, I think I have a perfect example from my life. I mean, I went home, I was in college, and I went home well, not home, but I went to visit my family for Thanksgiving, which I will be doing. I leave Monday to see my family. But I went there and my brother and sister were, my parents allowed them to bring their significant others. I was also dating somebody at the time, and that wasn't even on the table. And, going there, I was, I was a little pissed off. I was a little upset about the whole thing. But then we're sitting at, I'm not even kidding. We're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm just looking around the table, and something snapped in me. And I threw my fucking dinner across the table and lost my shit.
So dramatic, this one.
I lost it because
such a drama queen.
No,
but
but-
no, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
but it's Florida, so,
Right.
Well, yeah, but like it's that thing. I'm sitting around the table and I see my grandma and grandpa are together, my mom and dad are together, my sister is with her husband, my brother is with his significant other. I have a significant other, and he's not sitting there next to me. And you know how hard that can be for somebody. It just all of a sudden I was like, I snapped. I was like, I miss my partner, and I wish he was here to be with me and my family.
Right. And I mean, and not to mention, I mean, your road to acceptance, especially
With my family,
with your family, has been a long one. In the end, it was fruitful. You have a very healthy relationship with your father.
That's because I'm pretty vocal.
Right. He doesn't really give dad much of an option. It's like, yeah, I'm your gay son. I need you to be in my life. You're going to be in my life, and you have no other choice. And that's good. Not everybody has that bravery to confront their demons head on,
Or that safety.
Safety.
I mean, I will say, that being said, and we talked about it earlier, I have a very strong chosen family. I have a lot of support outside of my biological family. So in doing so, in having that moment, I knew I always had somewhere to go.
Backup.
There is protection in knowing that there are other people out there that love you just as much as your parents should.
Right. And so now let's go back to the topic of hand. Let's say you are an individual. You're not like Nick that has that, that backup, chosen family that you can lean on should your actual family not be willing to engage with you because of who you are. What are the options? I mean, what can you do as a person, as a human, to try to avoid getting into that black hole of nobody loves me? Because that's very dangerous, and it's very hurtful when family does that to someone. But how can you, as an individual, what can you do to work through that and find yourself coming out of it on the other end better than when you dove into that black hole?
Yeah. Well, so not everybody is as strong and powerful as Nick is, right? In their personality. So sometimes
guys.
you can be in their face. You can throw a dinner plate. You can say to your family, look, this is what it is. You need to just shut up and move on. Not everybody has that safety or has that, that personality to be able to do that. So that's one side of it, right? The radical other side of that spectrum would be removing yourself from that, right? If you don't inflict it, you can't have that negative experience. Again, not everybody has that as an option, right? Sometimes there are financial ties that are requiring that you be present and pay homage or whatever, and so there's tons in the middle. So when we look at what the middle of the road is, you need a couple of things. So first of all, and foremost, you need a safety plan, right? So if it gets to the point where you are no longer feeling physically or emotionally safe, and you are visiting family or they're visiting you or whatever, what are you going to do in the event it is going to get bad, or it just did get bad and you need an escape? So if you're back in your hometown, is there somebody who you trust, who can be your backup for a few hours? Can they meet you at a restaurant, at a bar? Can they, can you text them and say, hey, I'm coming over to just say hi? Even if you're not kind of legitimately planning, you are my rescue option. It's just, hey, I'm going to go over to Bill's house. We haven't seen each other in a couple of years. And can you go? Not necessarily to have a queer conversation, but it's a safe or safer space. So that's one option, right? Keep yourself safe, and have a backup plan. Even if that means, God forbid, even if that means, you get up, you leave, and you have, maybe you need to hit the road early, and head home. Have your friend circle, right? Sometimes just stepping away and texting a friend and venting, hey, this is just so totally fucked up. You have no idea how bad it is. And you guys, maybe you're commiserating, right? Your good friend went to their house in Florida. Your good friend, you're stuck in their house in Salt Lake City or whatever. And now you guys are basically comparing notes, right? Just somebody to vent to. So those are safeties. Those are safe things that you can do. If you are somebody who's already in psychiatric care, talk to your professionals, talk to them and say, hey, I'm going to be in this situation. This is a time of year that, professionals like myself tend to prescribe a little something extra, for people. Here, if you need this, you can take this medication while you're there, you're under stress. And these tend to be, we're not talking stuff that's controversial. We're talking about medications that are safe and non-addictive and, and so many other things. Have crisis lines available to you. If you're under 24, I'm a huge advocate of the Trevor Project. I mentioned them earlier in the show. They have a great chat line. If you have a history of, self-harm and suicide, there's suicide hotlines. Your therapist may recommend somebody if you have, or some solution if you have it. I have this year given my patients carte blanche to text me, with a caveat of I can't always answer back, but if you want to just, have a one-way conversation, I'm at least listening. And many of my peers, do those kinds of things as well, because especially for myself, right? I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I'm queer. I support the queer community. If anybody's going to at least have a conceptual understanding of what the hell is going on when you go visit family and you're not out or you're out or whatever, that's going to be somebody like me.
Right.
And that's admittedly self-serving, but that's, you need allies. You need those kinds of people. That's how you're going to keep yourself safe. You may not keep yourself totally sane. And let's face it, we've all watched those movies our entire life about people coming home for Thanksgiving. Those home experiences suck for a lot of people out there, right? They're not all joy. Sooner or later, somebody's going to have one too many drinks and mouth off about a political thing, about whatever. They're not all joyful, and they're not all gay and happy, right? To use an old style expression. So we have to expect a certain amount, but when you are the spotlight, or you are feeling that you are the spotlight of hate, discrimination, and inappropriateness, you need to make sure that you, above all else, are safe.
Right. It's interesting that you say that, right? You know, you have to also focus on what's important for you, right? In the sense that you have to take care of your mental health, your sanity, your physical health. I actually have two friends of mine, and interestingly enough, on different states or different places in where they live that do the same exact thing. So for them, as with many of us, as you mentioned, you know, we've been watching movies for so long about going back home and going through that whole stress of family and you know, secrets and things that people sort of kind of get loosey-goosey with once they have a couple. And I have two friends of mine, interestingly enough, that they always go back home for the holidays, but they both derive this thing where they immediately, as soon as they book that trip back home, the very next week, very early in the week, they book time for decompression. Oh, yeah. They book a massage. They go to a spa. I mean, they make an event out of it. It's a 3-day thing for them because that's what they feel they need to sort of kind of get rid of all of that negativity that they just absorbed during the holidays. And it's sad, right? We're talking about family. Yeah. Well, we're talking about people who are supposed to love you, people that are supposed to make you feel good, and the food, right? We talk about, oh, the food, it's comfort, it's this, and mom's cooking is amazing, but how amazing can food be if once you eat it, you can't keep it down because you're so fucking like about the whole experience of dealing with people that are just
or assholes. There's strings attached to it, or so many other things.
Right. You know, I found recently, I mean, like you guys both said, I'm lucky that, you know, through tenuous years, I finally, you know, my family, they're very accepting, and they are super supportive of me and proud of me. But no matter what, I still go home and something is made, some comment is made, somebody says something. But, you know, because I'm in the situation I take the moment to have that conversation and try to educate.
Right.
And I think that's important as
Which is where I was going to go next. If you're someone who's listening right now, and you don't have to be part of our community, but you're listening because you just want to sort of kind of get an idea of what we think like, what we're talking about, how we're feeling in our spaces, and you're noticing something at the table, say something. You know, I encourage anyone that is seeing someone be mistreated, stand up and say something. It might be uncomfortable for you, but just think about how much more uncomfortable it is for the person who's the subject of all of those punches. Yeah. Right? Say something, because sometimes that's all it takes. One person to get like, hey, dude, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Say something if you're confident that you're going to be safe.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I think that's, you know, that you make a great point, Tom, but again, we got to make sure that you aren't creating a risk for yourself.
No, and I'm not talking about the people, like the people that the punchline of the joke. I'm not talking about the gay person that came home. I'm talking about all the other people on that table, right? If you're someone that's witnessing a family member,
be an ally is what, be
an ally and say something, because sometimes getting up and saying, hey, dude, that's not cool. Don't ever say that in this house again, is all it takes for someone to simmer the fuck down.
You know what else too? I mean, we could go on forever.
Yes, we can.
But I have I don't want to say a second cousin, I guess, first removed. So my godfather, his grandkids, one of them is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, has not come out. But I made a point to go to their house one year for Thanksgiving. And I will tell you one thing, that kid, now, you know, in his teens, latched onto me and finally, like, just felt like there was someone else at the table that he understood. And I thought that was really powerful as well. So, like, if you find yourself in a space where you can be that for someone, I think you should do it.
See, that's what I had in my family, right? I'm not the only gay person in my family.
Oh, honey,
I have an uncle. I have an aunt. My aunt has been with her lover almost 32 years. And so when she comes her lover comes. I have cousins that are gay. So when we get together, it's a gay kiki. And so I had that safety net, you know, but it's unfortunate that other people don't. So if somebody cracked a gay joke, you've got like 5 or 6 serious faces turning at you and be like, come at us, bitch. Because we will stuff you like the turkey and shove you in that oven and no one will ever see you. But we have that safety net, right?
Yep.
Not
We
everybody
can't talk about
does.
hiding bodies here. That's
Right. Well, I can.
And I will also say one thing. My sister is my closest friend, and I love her to death. But to this day, she, kind of says that I hold on to too much. I hold on to what I went through.
It's not hard. It's not hard to let that shit go.
No, it's not hard to let it. I mean, it is hard to let it go, right? In some cases.
I mean, that's what I meant to say.
yeah.
It's hard to let that shit go.
But I think
well,
that,
it's trauma, Nick.
Yeah,
right.
It's right. I mean, we look at this, right? This is what's called trauma-informed care, right? It is what has made you, and you could get really fascinating about it, and you could actually say that it literally is now part of your DNA, because there's this aspect of epigenetics that we now understand that your sum of your life experiences alters your genetic makeup. And so
when you're in distress,
how can you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different markers are placed on different epigenetic cells. So markers. Sorry.
Right. Well, how can you let go of it if it's if it's genetic? How can you let go of it if it's trauma that you've held on to? Why don't you just turn around and say and we did this in the past, we got smart about it, but a soldier coming home from war, just walk it off. Right. This is trauma, and I'm not trying to minimize the trauma of our military, but trauma does this to us.
And I think that's my point is if you are having a conversation with somebody who you are very close with in your family and they try to minimize something that you're still holding on to or, still working through, don't let them minimize it.
Absolutely.
My sister, as much as she's my best friend, will never understand, the impact of, being thrown out of my house, having a physical altercation with my father, living in a trailer for a couple of months, not going home. And then when I went home to get clothes, being kicked out once again. She will never understand how that impacted me. On the flip side, I will never understand what it was like at home when I wasn't there.
Right.
And what she went through and what my brother went through. And I've heard stories and it wasn't pretty, but I don't think anybody should be allowed, or you as an individual should allow anyone to minimize something that really has made a huge impact on your life.
Right.
Radical acceptance. There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Again. Yeah.
There's the simple explanation of what it is. I always say that, just you see something, say something, be kind to people, love one another. In the words of Ellen DeGeneres, it's just love each other. And stop being assholes about the fact that, you don't agree with something and too bad. It's 2021. I feel that at this point in this decade and with this generation that's coming up, we have no time and no place for indifference about who we are as people and our right to exist. And we need to stand our ground when you can do so safely. That's very important. But stand your ground and fight for yourself, because I guarantee you that on the other end of that, you will be a much stronger and much wiser person for it. Always do you first.
Yeah, and honestly, on the other side of the whole gay issue or, community, LGBTQ plus community issue, there's the political issue.
Oh,
and that's my biggest problem now when I go home.
Right.
And I still haven't figured out. I mean, literally every time I go home now, I'm like, let's not talk about politics. I'll talk about it with my grandpa because he's at least smart enough to be liberal, but I can't. I feel like I can't have a healthy conversation with my parents or with my siblings because they're so dead set in one way, and no matter what I say, it's Well,
I mean, once upon a time, you could have some sort of feasible conversation with someone when it came to issues and policy stances that you stood for. But after 2016, and that, thou who shall not be named took office and subsequently left office, thank God, things changed because and I will drive down to DC and smack you with my harness.
Yeah, please do. Oh baby, please do.
Oh baby. No, but the thing is, it's like after 2020, it's crazy that we were in the middle of a pandemic. We had a change in administration, thankfully. But after 2020, the conversation about what people believe should have been and what isn't, right? Fact versus fiction, is detrimental, and it's also volatile and violent.
Yeah. It continues that way, partly because we've empowered voices, that are so negative, and then we have situations like, so I live just outside of DC in Virginia, and we just elected an anti-LGBTQ governor.
I know.
He's openly stated that he's not supportive of, and we've had amazing couple of years of unbelievable LGBT progress here.
Right.
And we're just getting slapped around. And
can I ask you a question? Those things? So we know that your state lost the governorship. It is now a Republican governor who's anti-LGBTQ plus. What about the House of Delegates? Did you keep control of the House?
There's, last I heard, there is one seat in still awaiting, or two seats perhaps still awaiting, but it is best case scenario, it'll be split right down the middle.
Holy shit.
But it's looking really like we're going to be about two seats that have flipped to the red.
Which is crazy, because you're literally going from a full-on blue wave state. You had a governor, your House of Delegates was democratically controlled. Did you have a Senate in your state as well?
Well, it is, yeah. It's one unified body, but yeah, it's I mean, it sucks,
right?
And I felt safer in Virginia than I did, and I mean, right, we're a state. You got to remember, we were our state was the seat of the Confederacy, and I should go on record that was actually before my time, but
I would hope so.
Yes, but these are the things, and we've watched a state just completely transition, which has been amazing.
Right.
And then here we are, just smacked with a pathetically tough reality.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. How do you set up, right? One other way to keep yourself safe is maybe setting up rules in your home as to what's safe to talk about and what we will not talk about at the table.
Yeah.
Right.
And
until somebody has one too many drinks and say, fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to talk about it
and
anyway.
Then where are you going to remove yourself? In 2016, so I have a biologic family, very few that I actually talk to, and then I have a adopted family that took me in when I was kicked out of the house when I was young and homeless, and trying my best to keep a connection to the biologic family that. And in 2016, I was there for Thanksgiving shortly after the election, obviously, and they actually segregated the tables.
Oh,
right. We had a Democrat table and we had the Republican table.
Who had the
Democrat
majority?
table was a 4-person card table that was wobbly, and we were placed in another room, and that's how they kept the room. That's how they kept the climate safe. It worked. But if you have to have a conversation with, it's like, okay, our rules are we're not going to talk politics, we're not going to talk, sex and sexuality, where our dicks are going or not going. I mean, whatever it is you have to do to put a rule in place,
Tell me about your recipe. Tell me about what I'm going to put in my mouth other than the penis that, you don't want to talk about.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's something to share at the table. Share recipes other than, so tell me what I'm putting in my mouth.
Right. What's little Johnny been up to? Pick on the kid who's in college who,
Right.
it's not really the right answer, but euphemistically turn to the kid and put the pressure on the college kid, or the guy getting ready for college, or or whatever. But yeah, find safe conversations and try to steer the conversation that way if you can.
Right. Well, Ed, as always, you are truly an oh my God, an amazing resource for this type of conversation, and I'm glad.
Love it with you guys. And I'm going to put you on the spot because I'm going to say this. So, I mean, as we said in the beginning, right? So I own Queer Ear Mental Health here in DC, but I'm also one of the co-hosts of Inside Out LGBT Collective. They moved our airtime to 6 p.m. on Mondays.
Lord have mercy.
So here's what I say we have to do. We have to simulcast.
Okay.
We should.
Yeah.
I'm game.
Right. You guys just going to have to remember the 7 words again.
Can you remind us, what are the 7 words that you cannot say?
Oh shit, I'm going to forget them.
On terrestrial radio.
Shit, piss, fuck, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits, and I'm probably forgetting one other in there.
Tits and ass.
That's it. Yep.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Yeah, that's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to remember that we're going to need to have a PG episode.
I will say, though, this conversation, this has been a pretty healthy conveation without swearing.
I mean, I got a couple of swear words.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll figure out a way to do it. And then we'll figure out a fun way. I have teased Dr. G about this in some side conversations. I said, I want to open a practice in his building because I want to be able to have our mutual practice called Heads and Tails.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, maybe we'll start that here since he's a frequent contributor for you guys.
Well,
we'll keep him.
I'm still in conversation with him too. I might just leave my job and go work for him. You never know.
Hey, listen, if the money,
you want the free health care?
No, I want to help him build a foundation for education.
Oh, hells to the yes.
Yeah.
You and I should talk about that offline.
He also has an ambition to have the most beautiful butthole in the world.
And that's going to take some work.
If you're going to get Dr. G to do that for you, then hell yes. But remember where I live, Nick, right? I live in Washington, D.C., the world of foundations, the world of funding, for those kinds of things. And I do some stuff with, it's amazing. We have an LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce down here.
We actually have one up here as well.
And ours is putting together a foundation and foundation funding. So maybe you, Dr. G, and I can have a 3-way sometime.
I mean, okay.
Yes. Can we make it a 4-way? Because, seriously.
Yeah. No, I love my job, but I mean, if and I said this to somebody a couple of weeks ago, when I was out of work and I had some opportunities come up, I just couldn't see myself fundraising for certain organizations that were, after me, and. I love theater, so obviously it's so easy for me to sell, it's so easy for me to fundraise for that. But then I think, if there was any other direction I would ever go, it would be fundraising in some type of LGBTQ pathway, working with, another organization or building our own foundation. I mean, I feel like first of all, there's not enough funding out there for the arts, but there's also not enough funding out there for, education within the LGBTQ plus community, plus just in general, LGBTQ homelessness, health, everything. So I think it's really important, and I know that I would get excited about it, and I would dive in head first.
I can see that you're excited about it. That's the professional in me. Reading your body language.
Yeah.
Do it. Go for it. There's a lot of people out there who would benefit from it, and yeah, I mean, people like Dr. G would be a phenomenal resource.
Oh, yeah, he's amazing. I love him.
Put him on the spot.
All right. So, Tom, what are we doing here? Are we going to close this out?
Yeah. So, all right. So, listen, we're going to jump into one of our segments. I'm going to give Trish some love. We're going to jump into Mama Kim's Minute. Trish?
Really quick. Ed, I sent you a message. I don't know if on Messenger, I don't know if you can handle that, but.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
All right.
Oh, okay.
He's going to do on this day in gay history.
Oh, you sent him one?
Shit. Okay.
All right. Yeah,
okay.
I did.
I was literally writing one in because I didn't see one in the notes, but that's okay.
Oh, is that what you were doing?
Yeah. All right. Well, go ahead. Let me give you your love.
All right, everybody, here's Mama Kim's Minute number 1. Jennifer Coolidge steals the show in new trailer for Netflix gay holiday rom-com single All the Way. It looks amazing, by the way. Number 2, Brian Michael Smith is the first trans man to be named one of the people's sexiest men alive, LGBTQ Nation. Number 3, New Holiday honors... A day J.K. Rowling came out as an opponent of trans rights,
which is horrible. Yeah, it's horrible.
Absolutely.
It's pretty bad.
So,
where's that old fuck her that you guys used to do?
Fuck her. That's so hard for me to say. I love Harry Potter.
I know. All right. Well, Ed, we'll toss it over to you for On This Day in Gay History.
You want to play Jay's music?
Sure. Hold on.
That's cultural appropriation. Let's not do that.
He won't mind. Take it away.
Oh, my God. So on this day in gay history, Wanda Sykes came out. At a rally for same-sex marriage, the comedian says she is proud to be a woman, proud to be black, and proud to be gay. And that was in 2008.
Oh my God, that's amazing. And I love myself some Wanda Sykes.
Oh, yeah.
So one thing that you don't know about her is that she likes to do a lot of cruise events. Like she'll go and do her stand-up comedy on cruises.
Oh, wow.
And she said that she made the mistake of going with her wife on an Atlantic cruise for gay men. And then watched her wife as she nonchalantly walked into the pool, and she looked at her and said, "Babe, you don't want to do that. Babe, don't get in that pool." And she goes like, "Why not?" I was like, and she goes, "Because getting in that pool is like jumping in a bowl of dick soup." Never forgot it. Never forgot. Oh shit. I just ripped off my thingamajiggy here. But I freaking love her to death.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's Wanda Sykes.
Have you ever, can we ask who here's been in a bowl of dick soup? No, I guess we can't ask that.
I think we've all been in
I'm going to ask, but we won't answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the silence is all you need to know.
Yeah, pretty much. Been there, done that. All right, well, ladies and gents, I would like to thank you all for joining us on today's episode. If you love the show, make sure that you go subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting service. By subscribing, you get the latest and greatest of our show delivered right to your device or web browser as soon as our episodes are published. You can also support us on Patreon, which allows you, our listeners, to support the show with a monetary donation, which we collect monthly and can be in any denomination of $1 or more, and we certainly appreciate it. I'll jump in here for Chris or Jay or anyone else and say that next week we will not be recording an episode. It is Thanksgiving week. Nick is going to be away. A lot of things are happening. People are prepping for, the big turkey day. And so we're going to take the week off, and we will come back on the following week. So we wish you all a happy Thanksgiving and hope that your Thanksgiving is as glorious as it can be. And for those of you who cannot share in that experience, send us an email. If I can be in any way of an ear for you while I'm off this week, I will certainly do that for you and wish you all, the best, and my heart is with you.
Or you can just shove a glitter bomb in the turkey and be like, fuck off. All right. So thank you to our guest co-host, Ed Stern. Ed, where can people find you if they need to reach out or want to reach out?
They can very easily find me at queerearmentalhealth.com or queerearmh.com.
Great.
All right. And we're going to smooth right over to the closing. So do you want to put a rubber on it?
But I just need to tell everybody. Where's my...
okay.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Get the Future Method today. Each time you clean out with water or enemas, delicate tissues are harmed and cells are damaged, increasing chances of injury and or STDs. The first of its kind doctor-developed formula gently cleanses before you play without hurting your bum. Visit futuremethod.com today to purchase your life-changing bum cleanser.
or your soothing cream, or your butt scrub,
or probiotics,
or the new probiotics. There's a lot on the roster and more to come. So make sure you check
Great
out
products. Too.
Yeah,
futuremethod.com.
All right. So in Jay's honor, I'm gonna go ahead and put a ring on it.
You gonna put a ring on it?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go for it.
All right. Our show is available on our website, GayTalk20.com, under audio podcasts. It's also available as a free download on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher Radio. You can also find us on social media: Facebook, GayTalk 2.0, Instagram, GayTalk 2.0, Twitter at GayTalk20. You can email us at GayTalk2.0 at GayTalk20.com. Tom, it's your turn.
All right. And if you need to reach out to us, just head on over to our website, click on the Contact Us tab located at the top of your web browser. There you can leave comments, suggest topics, submit a question for the cast or an individual host. You can also call us and leave us a voice message with any questions you may have. Our phone number is 334-GAY-TALK. And if you need all those digits, it is 334-429-8255. Don't forget that we do stream live every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can access that live stream by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. Ladies and gents, thank you for joining us, and that is our show for today. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.